Pictures of you, pictures of me, hung upon your wall for the world to see. Pictures of you, pictures of me, remind us all of what we could have been. Pictures of you, pictures of me, hung upon your...
Relive every moment true to life with True Capture technology, only from Canon.
And those who've come from China, especially for the event, to say we're delighted to be here. It's now my pleasure to ask Minister Sherry to give a report and an address to the lunch. Minister Sherry, the Minister.
Well, good afternoon. Welcome to you all. Forgive a Tasmanian senator for taking his jacket off. One of our friends in the media told me it was a cool day up here today. So we all know what the weather's like up here. I just wish I had more time to enjoy it. Welcome to you all, and I won't go through all the dignitaries, but a particularly warm welcome to our Chinese guests to Queensland. It's good to see so many players in the Australian tourist industry joining our guests here today. Events such as these are extremely valuable in helping nurture the important business relationships, and there is no more important partner for our industry than China. At a business level, there are many ways we can build on the growing tourism relationship between our countries by engaging with government, industry. We can make the most of this, what is Australia's most valuable tourism market by value and soon by numbers, I suspect. In this state, tourism brings over $9 billion to our economy. Queensland and its tourist industry is still recovering from the natural disasters of last summer. The Australian and Queensland governments have teamed up in a $12 million support package to get the message out, and it has been difficult. I've been overseas and get the message out that Queensland has recovered some time ago from the floods. There is unfortunately a perception, or has been, in the rest of the world that just about the entire Australian continent got washed away, and that's a perception we need to overcome. So hopefully this is a temporary setback and we can look forward to the future with greater confidence. Australia earned just over $3 billion last year from Chinese visitors, some 453,000 Chinese visitors. These arrival numbers have been growing at around 10% per annum, and over the past 5 years, 30% in the year to March 2011. This is with a stronger Australian dollar, so it's not all doom and gloom in terms of inbound visitor numbers vis-a-vis the Australian dollar. Now, by the end of this decade, we expect to see that number double to some 900,000 arrivals a year from China. They'll contribute some $6 billion to the Australian economy. I was in China recently. I went to Beijing for the PATA conference and obviously did some side visits and meetings with airlines, the China National Tourism Administration officials. I met the chairman, and I'm pleased to see many of those officials here today. I cast my mind back to the growth of Japanese tourism in the 60s and 70s, and I'm sure many in this room recall that, the massive investment from Japan and the massive number of tourists who arrived. And what really puts China into some perspective, for those of you who remember the Japanese visitor influx, what really puts China in perspective is China is 20 times the size of Japan. In its current economic stage of economic development, it's about where Japan was per capita in the early 1960s, and it is 20 times the size of Japan. We know what Japan meant for Australia. Just imagine what China means for Australia over the next couple of decades. It will truly be a monumental shift in Australia, have monumental consequences for this country. When I was in China, we talked about ways of fine-tuning the approved destination status scheme. It's marked more than 10 years of bringing tour groups to Australia from China. It's a very important two-way conversation. I invited our Chinese friends to consult with us on ways you can add value to the relationship. In China, I also met executives from a number of Chinese airlines, urging them to open up new routes. Sustainable aviation capacity growth is critical to Australia's most valuable tourism market. There are new airline services, including Hainan's service between Hangzhou and Sydney, which show the enthusiasm of Chinese carriers for our market. And further liberalisation in the skies will tap in the growing interest in Australian holidays. Tomorrow we'll hear about Tourism Australia's 2020 China Strategic Plan, which includes ways that organisations can help Chinese airlines embrace Australia. Of all types of traveller, those attending business events are often the most valuable in terms of spending. The outlook for business events is good. New figures show the business events sector in Australia recovered steadily in 2010. In dollar terms, expenditure on business events rose by $539 million to $8.4 billion last year. And these visitors spend on average $212 per night. And that's compared with $136 per night for all overnight visitors in Australia across the board. The Tourism Forecasting Committee expects average annual growth for business events of 3% over the next 10 years. Growth in visitor nights for business purposes has been revised upwards. To find out more about growing your enterprise in this sector, I'd steer you to the Business Events fact sheet. It's all part of Tourism Research's services to the industry. The measures to grow tourism you'll hear about are not being done in isolation. It's part of our national long-term tourism strategy. Joan Madden, who just spoke, will have more to say about the strategy, but let me just underline its value to business. It includes a national tourism planning guide, making it easier for planners to spot opportunities for tourism investment and act on those opportunities. This will help enterprises, many of them in the small business sector, who are often struggling with planning issues. And I'll have more to say about the nuts and bolts of generating new investment in tourism at Friday's investment roundtable in China-Australia tourism, which I'll be chairing in Sydney on Friday. Also, as Minister assisting on deregulation, the government is committed to working with industry to reduce red tape and turn more proposals into new developments. We're also developing a national online strategy for tourism. This will make it easier for tourism operators to connect with travellers in promising new markets, not least in China. I'm sure, certainly in the tourism and hospitality industry, maybe not so much in some other parts of the Australian economy, we're seeing an amazing revolution in distribution and sale of business activities around the globe. We're seeing the rise of web-based internet distribution. It's a massive revolution in the distribution of production and exchange. And as yet, many don't quite understand or appreciate the consequences. Many in small business, for example, which is my full ministerial responsibility, whilst 90% are connected to the web, just 30%, many of them tourism operators, don't carry out any form of business activity in any significant way using web-based distribution. So this is again a massive change that business needs to embrace, otherwise it risks being left behind. We bring Australia's industry leaders, airlines, airports and governments together to improve tourism access. This means, for instance, we plan for new infrastructure in a way that takes the economic boost from tourism fully into account. It means tackling barriers to do with aviation, as well as any emerging problems with moving passengers from one part of Australia to another, particularly given Australia's size. These issues are not optional extras, they are essential for growth. Since the working group met last in December, the government has negotiated several major new aviation, has achieved several major new aviation negotiations, and the outcome of China negotiations this year has seen Chinese aviation access rise by 55%. So, ladies and gentlemen, government is a valuable partner to have in the drive for business growth. China offers one of the best growth opportunities for the tourism industry. By working together, we can make the most of it. Thank you and enjoy the summer.